Yeah, I bet I learned to show consideration.
Carlos Rivera and Gary Jacobs. I just want to go through the intros real quick. We're going to talk today about these amazing stories about divorce, which the average person would think is just all made up, right? So Gary, if you took your story and you put it in a Hollywood script and the audience would come and see the movie, they'd be like, oh, come on, this is horseshit. How much creative license can you take, right?
If you told me, I wouldn't believe it.
Well, I felt the same thing about wrongfully convicted people as well, right?
Absolutely.
So Gary, so I understand now, you have a company that basically manufactures toys for dogs.
Right, mainly manufactures toys for dogs, but also consumables, rawhide bones, bully sticks, pig's ears, cow's ears, organic stain removers. I've been basically in the pet industry my whole life.
How old are you now?
So 52 now.
Carlos, you are?
52.
52. Wow. Okay. And so you ran for public office.
Because of the divorce, I got more involved in politics and advocacy work. I was always a volunteer type person.
Did the divorce really just inspire you to get into it because on some level you wanted revenge? You wanted to get into politics to see if you could change the system?
Well,
that's really what drives a lot of people.
That's absolutely what got me into it. I wouldn't say, I don't know if it drew.
Not personal revenge, but you wanted to.
No, I wanted revenge, Tom. I did. I wanted revenge against the judge, quite honestly.
Oh, the judge.
I did, yeah.
Right.
So that was part of it.
How would you do that? And let's say you won. You lost, right?
Right.
But let's say you won. How would you get revenge on the judge?
Well, the idea was when I started looking, how do you remove a judge? I Googled it. How do you remove a judge from office? And they're elected, so it's very hard to move somebody who's elected. But I did read that that the state, I think it was the state assembly, can vote on getting a judge removed, and if 2/3 agree,
right, but
they
then
would be
you have
removed.
to convince hundreds of other people.
Well, I didn't actually think it would happen, but I said, you know what? I want to make her life miserable and at least bring it to the public. Put forward a petition.
Which you're doing with Long Island Backstory to begin with, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, when I ended up running, she did end up having to step down. The pressure of me speaking out.
Who stepped down?
The judge that I wanted to get removed before before the election. Because listen, nobody listened to me before this. I was just a disgruntled father who got screwed.
Right.
Nobody cared about. Nobody knew who I was. I had no show.
Right.
I was a dog toy salesman. But when you run for office and you get one of the major parties' nominations, now all of a sudden, it's funny, all of a sudden they care about what you say. So Newsday talks to you, the local Channel 12, our local cable station.
Did Long Island Backstory give you more media coverage
I didn't have
by
it
default?
at the time. I started putting out press releases that I'll talk about divorce and the corruption in the political system, and I started getting picked up on local radio shows, cablevision shows, and I found that for me, being on the shows was a cathartic experience because in court, the judge decides who you are, you rarely get to talk, and you're just a bad person, that's it.
The court really slammed the door in your face. But the media, though, did you find a different reception in the media that they were more sympathetic to your court case?
Well, of course, the people that I went to, or the people who had me on their show, had me on because they understood the situation.
Right.
But having me talk about it, I got to say, you know what, let me tell my story. Let me tell people what's happening here. I don't have 3 minutes in a court. I have 20 minutes or 25 minutes on a radio show.
Court cases are that the only 3 minutes?
Sometimes, I would go in, I was in court for 11 years, right? There was times where I would go into court, sometimes I'd never even see the judge.
Right.
My lawyers, if I had a lawyer at the time, would go into a conference.
Right.
Sometimes the judge would come out from the bench and she didn't have 30 seconds I'd start to talk. Stop, I'm talking. Maybe I'd look at the transcripts and I spoke for 3 or 4 minutes. And this is my life.
Right.
I need a little more than 3 or 4 minutes to explain. It's not a soundbite, it's my life.
I remember when Alec Baldwin was going through his divorce with Kim Basinger, and he wrote a book on it. And I read some of the book, and you realize it's a system, right?
Right.
In other words, everybody has to get paid, and they keep it, they stretch it out
business.
as long as possible, right? And did you feel when you ran and you failed, did you feel it was a big
Well, I had never run.
Right?
I had never run before, so I wanted to run for either Senate or Assembly. But
gave it
the
a
party
good shot?
said, "Hey, you never ran for office before. Nobody knows who you are. You got to run for county legislator, at least something smaller first." But it was. But you know what? But I did raise over $70,000.
By the way, I don't believe that. By the way,
What's
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was a barmaid or a waitress. And she ran, and she was this very kind of lit up the, so she has a very charming way about it.
Donald Trump too. He wasn't in politics.
But Donald Trump had a name though.
Right,
I mean,
he did.
Everybody knew him.
Right.
Maybe not nationally, but at least in New York.
Right.
You wrote, working to end parental alienation, change the laws in New York State as it relates to family court through the legal system, politically, through protest, and the media. I have appeared on several news programs and many websites, documentaries, and radio shows. So basically, this was you got an axe to grind, you wanted to go in there, and you're going to say, I'm going to fuck these people up. Was your ire directed mainly towards this judge, or were there other people through the system?
It was the whole system. And I just want to be clear, I was done by that time. My case was done. Yeah. So it wasn't like I was trying to do it because I wanted to somehow reverse what happened. I knew I was done, So for me, it was, yes, there was a vendetta against the judge. And I still have this vendetta, just so you know. It's not over. Right. Till the day I die, I want to destroy this woman. Really, because what she did was she destroyed my children's lives, my relationship with my children, my finance.
But she's not a judge anymore.
So she's not a judge, but I don't care. I'm not done with her. I'll never forget about what she did.
What do you think you're going to do, though? What are the other repercussions?
Listen, at some point there could be lawsuits. There's just different things. Depends on what happens, with my children.
You would do that. You would do.
Oh yeah, I would do anything. I'd like to do more, protest. I'd like to protest at her house. I don't want her to forget.
I guess the question is that if you walking down the sidewalk and you see her and she's laid out on the sidewalk and she's near death, would you stop and try to help her out, or you just keep on walking?
I thought you said, would you stop? I might stop and make some comments. No, I would not help her, honestly. And I, listen, I forgive people, and people sometimes who hurt me in the system, but they were doing their job.
Yeah.
This woman was not. She's an evil. Listen, in life, in the world, there are evil people, right?
Right. So you're a pediatrician.
Yeah.
And how long was your practice before it just all went kaput?
I was about 15 years in private practice.
Wow.
I miss it. I really, really do.
Did you guys have a bonding moment when you each found out of each other's?
Actually,
are you best friends now because we are very close friends?
Actually, Carlos is my only friend, and he's definitely I consider him one of my best friends.
Yeah.
I met Carlos in jail.
Yeah.
You met Carlos in jail?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was a pediatrician, and at the time my wife took me in for contempt. And it's a long story about how I ended up in jail, but I ended up in jail, and then my patients started looking for ways to help me. So they looked online, and they found Gary and the Americans for Legal Reform as a legal advocate to help me out. So the first time I see him, my girlfriend had brought him into the visiting room in jail, so I'm wearing a yellow jumpsuit that says inmate over the front of it.
And we had a glass wall between us?
Yeah. So, and Gary's, asking me my story, and we're trying to figure out ways to get me out of jail.
Right.
Because a lot of people...
When you found out about his story, you're like, holy shit, this is like a reflection of me on something.
Well, it was different because there was a more money issue. My case was more of alienation, the children, and his was combination of... his alienation had just started, actually, but his was more about money and revenge and greed. But you know what? People tell you stories all the time.
Your wife wasn't greedy with the money? I mean, she tried to take the house? Did she not try to take the house?
She did. Honestly, I mean, I could say a lot of bad things about her, but the show's only an hour long, so I won't. Right. But really, money was...
We got some time.
Hers was honestly...
I'll give you some venting moments later.
No, hers was more about... Yes, money was the most important thing to her, but for me, it was more about the kids. But when I heard Carlos' story from his patients, it almost sounded unbelievable because he was such an icon, and I never heard of him because we don't live in the same area. This guy was like an angel, like taking care of kids in their houses who were sick.
That's what I got. I mean, I didn't get such a deep sense of it because you know him personally, but I got a little bit of that by the fact that I think your patients went to bat for you.
In a tremendous way.
In a tremendous way.
On a Monday morning, which most people are working, I had over 60 people, 60 of the mothers and fathers, and some of them brought their kids in court to protest, what was going on with me. And the big story about how I left my former practice, which was a big practice, I went off on my own. But because of my divorce, I didn't have money. My patients generated about $160,000 to help me go into private practice because I had nothing.
Wow.
And you're talking about blue collar people. Somebody.
What do you mean? They just got a fund together? They just kept it was like a GoFundMe type situation?
No, it was really just people. I don't know how it happened. It was just a miracle.
$160,000.
Yeah. Just like, hey, listen, I got a couple of bucks. Maybe I can help you get started.
Wow.
This person gave 25.
And they didn't take your wife's side, though, because
40.
sometimes you don't know what goes on personally in somebody's home.
I think, my story made for a lot of good gossip. You really couldn't pass up on the gossip. But they knew me as a person, and, over the years that they knew me, I really treated everybody like friends that I took care of their kids. We were really close, and when they saw what was going on with me, they left the bigger practice, came over to me in my new little practice. And it really wasn't a GoFundMe. It was more like word of mouth and like, hey, listen, I can help you out. could you use the help? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Very humbling, though.
What kind of childhood did you guys have? Were you a rambunctious kid in high school? Because you seem like, you were definitely a pushover in your marriage a little bit. Is that safe to say?
No, not really, actually. I wouldn't say I was. I was always...
Well, yeah, but the video that you guys did, as you were talking, I got the sense, just from a viewer, you could have been a little bit more pushback with your wife.
I really, in the marriage, I would say I was...
Within the marriage,
Oh, yeah, within the marriage.
I'm not talking about during the divorce.
Okay, yeah, during the marriage, I would say I was, and I think that's a flaw, and I know Carlos very well, and that's something that we both have in common, that during our marriage, we just wanted peace.
Right.
We believed in marriage. We wanted to stay together with our family, and I did this. And yeah, listen, I disagree with a lot of things my wife did. I started to realize, probably, believe it or not, it took almost about 4 or 5 years into the marriage before I realized there was some kind of mental illness going on with her. But I said, listen, what am I going to do?
Because I know we're jumping, but okay, so you're hitting some points here.
Not so further in the marriage.
You didn't pick up on any kind of mental illness? Because when you go out with someone, because I wanted to discuss with both of you, I guess, the courtship period, right? Because when you meet a woman, I believe that many times the signs are there.
I think really we were very similar. My wife used to brag that I never said no, and it's just to keep whatever makes you happy, go along the way.
But I'm talking about the first date, the second date, the third date. In other words, when you initially go out, when guys and girls start going out on dates together, the signs are there, but, the chick might have a nice body or this and that. And what we do is we ignore the signs.
My wife, it was the nipples that caught my attention. It's a true story. I don't know if we're going to edit this out. I met my wife in a bar. She had these nipples that were like pencil erasers sticking through her shirt. Right. She had a good body.
You're a boob guy?
No, I was. Like... She cured me of that. But the truth is, I met her in a bar. This wasn't going to be my wife. She seemed fun. She was fun. She was drinking. We both had the same interests. We went out a couple times, and I'm abbreviating the story, but at the end of the day, she told me she was on birth control pills. She gets pregnant and says, well, look, I'm going to have the baby because I want to have another kid. She had another kid from a previous marriage. Oh, my
God, you poor bastard.
And if you want to have one...
You married her because you had to do the right thing because she was pregnant?
Not only that, but she actually told me 2 things. Number one, if you don't get married, the kid's not going to have your last name.
Right, but Gary, here's the deal, though. When she says I'm on birth control and, I'm pregnant, did you not think maybe she's deceptive?
Oh, absolutely. But what are you going to do? Now you're in this point, and you go out
and get an abortion.
Well, I didn't even.
She didn't want the abortion.
I'm not really for abortion, and I love kids. And I said, you know what?
What do you mean? You're religious? You're Catholic upbringing?
No, Jewish, but just my personal thing is I think believe. My personally is the first trimester, if somebody wants to do it, but I really don't like the idea. I believe, life is precious. Right. I love kids, and I always wanted to have kids anyway, so not that I was that religious, but I was like, you know what, maybe God made it happen. She's pregnant, and if she would have got it, I probably wouldn't have said anything, but I wanted to have a child.
The thing I don't understand is that you can't go into this as if like it was an expensive buy on something. Oh, we'll buy it. That's all right. We'll work it. This is marriage. This is for the rest of your life. I'm not judging you. I know people are wired differently.
We're older
if
now,
I was in your situation, was your mother nurturing?
Yeah,
she was. Was your mother nurturing?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so I wonder if that's it. Even.
Did they coddle you?
Is that why it's psycholitics? Because
did they? Well,
people. I'm a Jewish mother, and and nobody was good enough, and I was coddled.
Did you have a similar upbringing?
My mom was very, very religious, very Catholic. So
boy. That raises a red flag right there for me.
Yeah, we were raised keep the peace.
Right. What ethnicity? You're Puerto Rican, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. A full mom and dad Puerto Rican, and you're full Jewish.
Yep.
Right. Well, what ethnicity?
Well, all over the place. I got from Europe, but my family's been here for.
You have a good relationship with your mom and dad?
Yeah. My parents were married. They didn't get divorced till I was out of the house. So we grew up. We had a middle class. Dick
Same thing with you?
No, single parent household.
Oh, single parent.
I was about 4, maybe 5 when my parents split up.
Right. I saw a little bit of the tattoos there. Were you a bruiser in high school?
No, I was a nerd. Still am, really.
You were a nerd?
Yeah, I just like tattoos.
And why? Oh, okay. And when did you get the tattoos?
This one I got right before jail, I guess, so the guys would know I was straight. But the rest I.
Why did you get hit on in jail a lot?
I was. It was half joking, but I was just like.
What's
I was
the
afraid.
jokes?
I got to tell you.
Half joking leads into some heavy shit.
No. Yeah, actually, in jail, everyone's the level of homophobia is tremendous.
Right. So they say.
Surprised by that. No, really, where I was, it really was because I was I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to be gang raped. I'm going to get beat up. I'm going to have to find where to hide in the yard.
Right.
And it wasn't like
Yeah, but
that.
I mean, come on, you're a Puerto Rican guy. You can't take care of yourself. What kind of Puerto Rican are you?
Again,
away
I
from,
grew up a nerd. I was always a nerd.
Really?
You know, yeah. So, and
Now,
I
your
gotta tell you-
mom raised you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And your dad was missing?
Yeah, I rarely saw my dad, maybe once or twice a year.
You have a good relationship with him now?
Well, both my parents passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to
No,
hear
no,
that.
it's,
Okay.
you know, life
Are your
happens.
parents still around?
My father passed away just recently.
And
so
you
he
were
was-
close with your dad, right?
Yeah, yeah, we
Right.
were
You're close
close.
with both of your
Yeah,
parents.
yeah, absolutely. My brothers, sisters, we had a close. My whole family was close. There was very little divorce really in the family. In the neighborhood I grew up, I remember the family who got divorced.
Right.
How it was like crazy that
The
this family
family,
got
yeah.
divorced.
Right.
You know, and people didn't do it back
Right.
then.
When you're a child of a broken home, by default, if you get married, you might pick up certain things, you know, you don't even know it in your subconscious. And you pick them up and you might do the same things that your parents that were, in other
Yeah.
words, they fucked up their relationship because they did something, you know, it's about the nuances, right? And so by default, you pick it up, you absorb it as a child,
You walk into what's familiar.
and then you go in and you do the same thing
Yeah.
in your marriage. You think there's a sense of that with you? Maybe not Gary so
in my
much. but-
case, absolutely. All the things that I grew up with, I really walked into it. Not, you know, no one gets married with the intent that I'm gonna get a divorce in a while. I'm
Right.
going to ride this out.
What do you think you
Wanted
did
to work.
wrong in your marriage?
From the get-go, probably we were good friends that got married. We probably should have got good. We stayed good friends. You know, the society
What are you
pressure.
saying? You're saying a piece of paper fucked it up?
I'm saying not
Because if it works as good friends, why doesn't it work as marriage? That's the question.
Because marriage is a bit more complicated than that. You're
Well,
living
because
with the
it puts
person
the
24
pressure on you, right?
But I got married a little bit younger, so you know we were.
How old?
Well, I got married at 27, but we were together for like 4 years or something like that.
Right.
And I had never lived with anybody. I always lived at home.
Right.
But you learn more about the person, and I had a lot going on in my personal life.
You said you were a nerd. Did you have a life before your wife? Did you date a lot?
No, not at all. I think my wife was my second girlfriend.
Oh, you poor bastard.
Yeah, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Well, listen, I was a Boy Scout.
No
I was
hookers or anything like that? You didn't-
Boy
nothing
Scout,
like that?
Honor Society, and band camp. Like it was just everything you could do to keep
Wow.
women from being interested in you. I
Right.
did.
When you got divorced, did you say, I'm going to go fuck as many broads as I can? I mean,
No.
because, I mean,
Not at all. Not at all.
again, it's important to understand that I think it's very healthy to date as much as
think
you
so.
can and see as many people as you can all throughout high school into your college years before you settle down, because in the back of your mind, you're saying, what am I missing out on?
Yeah, for me that applied.
And it's always going to be,
Not for me.
so that lingered in your mind?
Yeah, because I think that what ended up happening was, I guess, low self-esteem, and as a younger man,
Yeah.
kind of led into, you know, I got married thinking, okay, well, this person actually likes me. Let me
Right,
get married.
right.
And then
So in a
later
way,
on-
you were looking to your spouse to prop you up on someone. In other words, by default, we know that you have to be your power, not somebody else.
Yeah, I don't know if I would use the word power, but I think it became more of a boost for self-confidence. That
Right.
is, okay, listen, you know, I met a pretty girl and it works out. Like you said, when you
if we
get
don't
older,
say power, we say self-confidence. Then we have to say that self-confidence has to come from you, not from your wife.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it does. And that's part of the thing with maturity. I think that when you're in your 20s, you're very, very different than your 30s, 40s,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And
Right.
I think that, like you said, I never really experienced being with other people and what other relationships might be like. So I accepted things in my relationship that were, when you have a fundamental difference, it's not going to work out right. So if
What was
you
the
don't-
fundamental difference?
Well, honestly, intimacy. You know, my ex-wife.
What do you mean? What are we talking about? You're going to
You know,
tell
it's
us what
just-
happened in the
it's hard
bedroom?
to say. Yeah, no, I'm not going to. You know, I'm not going to say that. But you know, one person is more interested than the other. It's just not going to line up well.
Oh, I see. So did you have more of an interest in her than she had in you?
Absolutely. And what I
Right.
used to be told was like, well, when a woman gets into her 40s, she has more of a sexual drive than now. I was like, well, I'm in my 20s, and I kind of want to experience it now.
She
So there
was
was
older
a
than you?
disparity. No, it was actually
She
was a
wanted
year
him to wait
younger.
20 more years to get laid.
Yeah, so it was,
Oh,
so
wow.
I gotta say,
So
man,
you
I
guys
hate
were on
to
the
say that
same age,
publicly.
though, right?
Oh, she's a year younger than me, but yeah, about the same
Right,
thing.
right.
So,
Did you feel like your wife, on some level, because you were a nerd, maybe you might have been a little bit of a pushover? She wanted a little bit guy, take charge guy?
no, I don't think it was that. I think that, you know, Gary and I both had the nice guy syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, so if somebody wanted to marry a nice guy that's quiet and whatnot.
Which is
you know,
common
later
for people
on,
who get screwed in the courts, which
Yeah.
we'll talk about later, is you rarely see an asshole
Right.
get screwed the way Carlos and I did.
Rarely,
True story.
rarely,
We
yeah.
know a lot of people now, and now I have no empirical data,
Look,
but
we can extend that to life. I mean,
Well,
nice
true.
guys finish last. We've heard this many times.
Right.
So whether it's courts or a girl or with your friends or whatever
it's
it
very
might be.
true in alienation.
It,
you know.
it sounds so cliche, but it couldn't
does.
be more true. It really is.
I tell people, I think, I don't feel good, but it doesn't make me feel better, but it is true.
Well, so you met your wife. How old were you?
I was in my 20s. She was older than me, 10 years older than me.
Wow.
As I said, I met her in a
So
bar.
early 20s?
Yeah, and she
Right.
was like in
Early
so,
30s.
Yeah, and
Right. Can you?
18, she was 17.
Oh, wow. So you're really young.
so I experienced my life before. Like Carlos
Did you
was
have
different.
a dating life before
I had a
that?
huge dating life before. I went through college.
How much did you pay for it?
You know, believe it or not, I never did because I said, I used to say, why do people pay for hookers? It's so easy to hook up with women for free. Although I did come to find out that sex for money is cheaper than sex for free.
Right.
But that's another. But that's for another show.
Right,
But no,
right,
so
right.
I had a lot
Well,
of
you're
women.
a walking testimonial as to why you should not get
So
married.
I dated a lot, and then like when this thing happened when my wife got
And I
pregnant.
assume you are too as well, right? Because I know his story. I don't know your story that well.
Well, you should not marry the wrong person, I guess.
Right,
I mean,
right.
listen, I'm sure there is somebody out
I'm
there
not
who's
even for
happily married.
marriage anymore. I really think
You're
that
not?
it's- No, not
Well,
at
see,
all.
we're jumping the gun, but okay. So basically, how do you feel like when you go out with a girl? How do you feel? Do you feel like she's like you're trying to? You're cautious now, right?
After I started dating somebody, after maybe a year and a half after I filed, I started dating somebody, and I went slowly and was cautious, and so did she because she was divorced. But I've been with the same woman for 14 years.
Right.
But
Wow.
we live in separate houses.
Oh, you don't want so that's a fear.
And
That's
it's
a fear.
Absolutely is a fear. I said I've been kicked out of my house and arrested and orders of protection so many times. I never want to put
share
myself.
a bank account with her.
Yeah, and I wouldn't. Well, now she'd become the moneyed spouse, but I never want to put myself in that vulnerable
Right.
position. And she's never let on that she would ever do something, and she got divorced and didn't do it. But I just never want to put. I said, what kind of fool would I be to put myself in that position? And like Carlos, I'm soured to marriage. I sort of believe in the idea that kids. Because listen, as a kid, I like being raised with
think
my
you can get
parents.
married again?
No,
No.
no.
At least you know what you want.
But I
At
say,
least
why
you-
do
you-
it? If I'm not going to get kids, if I'm not going to have kids, and I understand that from a woman's point, they want that maybe, but there's no security. People say to me, "Oh, there's security though." What's the security? I was married to my wife. She screwed everybody in the neighborhood and took my kids and took almost everything else. There's no security
the
in
problem
that.
is marriage is an industry. I think that marriage initially started and should be just a relationship decision.
Right.
And I think the piece of paper doesn't make it
Makes it
last.
worse.
It doesn't make it invalid.
Your marriage, when it initially started, did you feel it was good? Or did you always feel like you're kind of walking on eggshells?
Yeah, walking on eggshells. But I guess in my perspective, in my head, I wanted to believe it was good, and it was more of I loved having my kids. I had the one that was born, then we had another one, shortly after. I just was so happy to have my kids. I would say we more coexisted.
Was it fearful you to have kids?
Fearful.
Because you're having kids at such a young age.
No,
and
I wasn't fearful
You weren't
about having
prepared
kids.
for it because you got pregnant.
But
right?
I wanted to have kids. I knew I loved kids, and like I said, I got all this out of
so
my
you
system.
felt psychologically you were ready at that time to have
absolutely.
children.
I mean, as anybody, as ready as anybody is.
Of course.
But the fear to me was I never wanted to get divorced, not have my kids be raised with me. That was my fear.
Right. Carlos, you got married at a young age. Did you have kids at a young age?
No, really, I was about 27 when I got married.
You met 17, 18, but then you were
Yeah,
the
we were
courtship
together
was,
for a while, and then the long
I see, I
engagement,
got
that
you.
kind of thing.
Okay.
But I think like Gary, you're raised with these traditional values, and I really believed in the American dream. You get
Right.
married, you have your kids, white picket fence, you
Right.
got your dog, and that's really what I was shooting for. I thought that was what you were supposed to do. And I wanted to be, good husband, good father, and along the way I made my mistakes.
Gary, you told me initially what I thought was an absurd thing to hear from somebody, any human being.
Was I drinking that night when I told you
At the
this?
Itchy
I'm getting
event.
nervous. Okay.
At the Itchy event. No, it's just something very simple.
Right.
11 years of marriage, 11 years of divorce.
Right. And a lifetime of
And
pain.
for me, I'm like, what the fuck?
I always my divorce literally
And
lasted longer
you
than my
didn't
marriage.
strike me as a bullshit artist. You struck me as a straight shooter. But then I'm starting to question. You hear it like a crazy thing like that, and you start to question, is Gary off his rocker? Like, you
It
start
sounds
thinking,
crazy,
right?
doesn't it?
So you don't hear about us in the beginning because really nobody brags about getting screwed in a divorce. But once you're in it, you see how ubiquitous it is.
Yeah.
There's plenty of us. We're really not an exception.
Right. Are you still in court?
It still
You're
lingers.
still going
yeah,
through it.
mine will never end because of a judgment that was given to my ex. I'd given her $500,000 in 4 years, but she still got a $160,000 judgment that goes up at 9% interest every month. So I'm currently about $460,000 worth of child support arrears.
From an article, Fox 40. According to them, it's even higher. I don't know, quote, I'm currently at $680,000 worth of arrears at 9% interest. Is this not?
Mine got pretty damn close. To, what, 760,000
Oh,
before my last hearing?
Because this was
It
a
got
fairly
reduced to
recent
400.
article
After
as
his
well.
hearing, though, they actually cut it back
to 400
to
from
400.
760.
Oh,
It
I
was,
see. So
that was accurate at the time, but the judge cut
I
it back.
see, okay. And then you basically said, I will never be able to get out of this hole. Do you feel that way?
Absolutely. There's
Yeah.
no way.
Right.
But they
And
want you to be an indentured servant because they collect on the child support.
when you say
arrears.
they, you're talking about
The system. The system is designed.
prosecutors,
it's-
judges,
The child support enforcement system, the New York court, the court system is basically a $70 billion a year industry. They want people like me to get themselves into arrears because most of the time you can't get out of it.
right. So you're saying males are victims in the court system when it comes to divorce on a general note.
On a general,
Statistically, yeah.
general
yes,
note.
statistically, yes. I mean, we always get into this because people watching, there's going to be women watching and saying, that's not true, I got screwed. And my answer to them is, we had a black president. That doesn't mean there's no racism. Oprah Winfrey is one of the richest people in the world. Doesn't mean black people aren't statistically going to make less. So in the court system,
Right.
CNN just did a story that Carlos and I appeared in, and their statistic was it over 80% of mothers get custody.
Yeah.
On
these
some
are-
level-
That statistic's been
but
pretty
just
level
think
for
about
decades.
statistics. If you're one of the 20% of the women who got screwed, it's damn bad for you too.
And to be honest with you,
On
the
some level,
tides are
just-
shifting.
Well, the tides are shifting.
Yeah, because as more women are finding themselves in having increased salaries, you're starting to see that whoever's got more money is really the target.
On some level, is it
Traditionally.
understandable, though? You know, historically, the woman is supposed to be the nurturer of the children. The guy goes out and he works.
Well, traditionally, as you
Traditionally,
Right.
yes, of course, of course. If you trace the court system back into 10, 50, 100 years ago, whatever, and then people started getting divorces, right? I don't know, 200, 300, whatever. That sets a seed from back in those days.
It was a law, Tom. They had the thing called the tender years
years.
doctrine. Tender years doctrine.
And what did that say?
basically said that the mother should be raising the children, the father should go out and earn a living.
Right. And generally, I mean, men, we see this with the Me Too movement now. You know, there's a lot of shit that men do. I'm not saying, I look at life with humans, male, female, I don't put people in groups. But on some level, though, you know, men are always, they have a certain mentality that doesn't equate to how the woman feels. It's this, masculine thing going on. So
I disagree. I think that really now guys, I think now though men are expected more to, and I think it's right to be more involved with the children, share responsibilities in the home. And I think the problem with the current court system is it was based on a 50s, 60s mentality. Like father knows best, and he's,
Right.
father's the breadwinner. The problem is the court system never caught up with the women's movement. And granted,
That's interesting.
They've gained more clout in the workforce and they're more independent.
Right.
But the system still stayed with that 50s, 60s mentality. So I think that's one of the reasons you still see the predominant males are predominantly more effective in family court. But now, as we were saying before, the tides are shifting because women are finding themselves more as the moneyed spouse in
Right.
relationships.
And Tom, I just want to add to that I think that, when you talk about the fathers getting, the traditional roles and why it's changed, there's also a lot more studies now. Listen, we got away from, because now there's more divorce, right? So now it's very common, and a lot of children are being raised without the father in their home. A lot of them are in their 20s and 30s.
Right.
And we look at statistics,
Yeah.
and they say that almost 90% of men in jail were raised without a father in their life.
Right.
Women, girls who become women,
I question how generational that is. Because
So,
the generations are different. On the one hand, you could say about millennials that we live in this outrage culture now. But then our generation didn't have social media. So we can't gauge how outraged we would be if it was back in the 70s or the 80s. Does that make sense?
It does, but I don't think we could change the fact that for jail for existence, that 90% of the men in jail were raised without a father in their home.
Right.
Women, teen pregnancy, raised without a father.
Right.
There's a long-term study called the ACE study. What is it?
Adverse childhood experiences.
Which shows now that's got a long history of children. This is an adverse going through divorce. What these children end up with: heart disease, high blood pressure, dying early. Their divorce now, divorce rate of children of divorce is even higher than their average 50%.
Sure.
So there's a lot of issues that we're now saying, you know what? I think it's going back. If you really talk to a psychologist who knows what the hell they're doing,
Right.
they would say, listen, we need a father in their life, not Wednesday for dinner and every other weekend for a few hours. They need to be a part of their life. We're coming to find out that fighting sometimes between the mother and the father
Right.
is healthy because they learn that you can fight
Of course.
and then go to
promotes,
bed with
promotes communication.
and go to bed with that person. Now imagine kids who are raised and they see that they don't see the fighting. All they see is that, well, my dad did something that annoyed my mother, so my mother went to court and had him put in jail.
Right. I really want to get into your case because you are the main attraction here. But
Only because you didn't read it as much.
I don't know that much about your case, but knowing what I know about your case is really just a phenomenal case when you think about it. But so you met 17, 18, you got married at 27. And you had 4 kids. And how many years were you married? When you got married at 27, you're 52 now.
We were together 22 years total. 15 of them were married.
So you met when you were 17.
17. I might have got
Right?
some.
So
of,
10 years later you got married.
No, not 10.
So there's 25 years altogether. If you look at
I might be off on the ages. We were together 22. That number I remember. We were together 22, married for 15. Those ones definite on. When exactly we got married, that I forget.
You were together for 22, you were married for 15. Okay, all right. So maybe you met her a little later, or maybe you got married a little earlier. I'm just trying to figure out. Anyway, neither here nor there. Okay, so you're married.
So long ago, you're like, I can't.
Well, it's interesting when you're saying that. I'm saying to myself that when people go through divorce, one thing you don't realize, the time frames get messed up in your head. First of all, guys aren't as good with dates to begin with, but not seeing your kids. Like when I saw my kids and I was living with them, I knew how old they were because I celebrated their 5th birthday, 6th birthday. Right. They're getting their license at 16. Right. You celebrate all these things. When you're married, you celebrate your 10th anniversary, your 50th. When you get going through this court, life stands still. So my kids are blocked in my mind as when they were, 12 and 13. And when people ask me now, how old are your kids? I haven't seen my kids in 7 years.
I know.
And that time is fucks with your head because you don't have a point of reference in your head.
Right.
And when you're in court and you're depressed and that also messes you up where I think your mind somehow blocks it out.
When I look at you though, you don't look like a basket case. You don't, unless you do a good job of, I don't know you that well.
No, you're right. I do have some issues, but first everyone deals with it differently. So I did go through PTSD and therapy, but my outlet was to fight the system and to try to help others in my advocacy work. There was a psychologist who helped me. I was getting depressed and I had nightmares and I couldn't sleep and my life is over.
How long did you go to therapy for?
Only for a couple months because I had a very good one. But I remember one key thing that a therapist said to me was, she said, Gary, I want you to post on Facebook. I was posting depressing things about how bad court was.
Right.
I said, I want you to post something happy on Facebook.
Did that help?
Every day. I said, what does that matter? It's bullshit.
Right.
She said, because your wife is a sociopath, and there's nothing that will piss her off more than seeing that she didn't destroy you. She took your kids, and that you're happy. So I did. I posted this stuff because I was doing it because I wanted her to be pissed.
Right.
And she saw me a couple months later and said, are you doing it? And I said, yes, I am. She said, how's it going? And I said, good. She said, you seem happier. She said, the reason I was doing that, yes, to piss off your wife, but who cares about her? Right. But if you started putting that forward, you become what you are. I said, holy shit, she was right.
Right.
I became that happier person.
Right.
And
maybe I should do that too.
I had to listen, my wife, it's very hard to transition from a family man to not having kids.
Well, you see my Facebook feed. There's nothing but all the crazy shit that's going on politically and socially in this country. But maybe I should start posting pictures of dogs.
Well, it is, but then you think about politics. But my life had to change from I was a family man and a father. People say you're still a father. I'm not. I don't see my kids. I don't act as a parent. I don't have. So I had to regroup and get a whole new set of friends. My brain had to change from a father, from a loving father and a husband, to a boyfriend, to an advocate, to a businessman, because I used to judge my life. If you would have said to me when I was married, tell me about yourself, Gary, I would say I'm a father. That's number one.
Right.
I'm a husband, I'm a father, and then I'm a businessman.
Right.
Now it changed.
At what point did you start seeing cracks in the relationship?
Pretty much from the beginning. Some of the stuff I was really unhappy with, but accepted and figured, okay, it was almost like when they tell you in Alcoholics Anonymous, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
So I figured, okay, well, I'm not quite happy now. If I go to the next step and I make her happy, then maybe we'll be happier.
Right.
And the truth is, there was always that sense of like, it wasn't a perfect fit for marriage.
At what age did you become a doctor?
93, so let's subtract 67 from 93. So what would that be?
30 something.
Gosh.
You're the math guy.
This isn't a math show.
In his 30s.
Carlos.
In his 30s.
All right, so when you got
close to
married, you
30.
weren't a doctor yet.
No, but I was always
But
talking about being a doctor.
Did she see? Oh, you didn't even tell her you're going to become a doctor? She didn't know?
In the very beginning, life kind of took a change. I thought I was going to go into medicine, then I steered a different way, then I went back to it. So there was always a talk of medicine. And honestly, later on in life, I really realized that she wanted to be the wife of a doctor.
Did she see you as the breadwinner, or did she
I
make
think
money
that
too?
I think that there was, pot of gold on the horizon kind of thing.
That's what she saw.
Yeah, that's
right.
I'm convinced.
She did,
Now,
did she,
especially after divorce, I'm convinced of
After
that.
seeing
Did
what
she-
I see,
did
she definitely did.
Did she work?
She worked for a brief period of time as a special educator.
Right.
But
She didn't have a career or anything.
well, I mean, technically, I guess you
went
call
to
that her
college?
career. She went to college and
Right.
she was working as a special educator.
Right.
And she worked until we had our first child.
What kind of a woman was she? Was she sweet? Was she warm? Was there a warmth about her? Was she like Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
I'm
or
one
what?
of those guys that give everyone the benefit of the doubt. So it's funny because everyone around me didn't quite like her, but it was
Yeah.
just like, oh, you don't understand her.
Right.
She's just shy. She
Right.
seems that
But
way.
then at the end of the day, you realized everybody else was right.
Man, did I feel? And then later on, you're like, I wish you would have told me then. Like
Right.
everyone's quiet when it's going on.
You know,
but-
it's tough because I've had friends that say, why didn't you tell me ahead of time? And I said, well, if I told you, it might have cost us our friendship.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So did they tell you the same thing on some level?
Same thing.
Yeah.
People just didn't want to, were hoping for the best, but they
Right.
feared it.
Right.
Feared the worst.
Obviously, we're going to get into your wife in a second, but if I met her, what kind of an energy would I get?
No, definitely not a loving, warm, cuddly.
To you?
No,
To
to anybody.
others? Nobody?
Anybody. Her mother was the same way.
Right.
Her mother was a German woman. I said, man, this woman is just tough. And she'd say, yeah, my mother's tough. I didn't know what was wrong with her. I come to find out. Meant psychologically what it was, but it was also before the internet, so you didn't Google all these symptoms. But I used to say she was cold and selfish was the way I looked at it. But I realized she had no feelings, no warmth. She wasn't a caring, compassionate.
You didn't see this in the beginning?
No, because I was young. She was attractive. She had a
Look,
good
man,
body.
I mean, you were in your 20s. You can't say you were young. I mean, in other words...
Well, like Carlos, we grew up. I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up on Long Island. You were a little bit sheltered.
Well, who cares? I mean, that has nothing to do with growing up
but
in Long Island. I mean, my cousin grew up in a village in Greece. He understands.
Yeah,
In
but
other words,
I really
You
didn't.
still were around people, and you have the ability to gauge.
I think the other thing too, that because you're going one way, but the truth is, I identify a lot with Gary. You're raised a certain way. Like Gary's just a really, really nice guy. To this day,
I don't take that away. I see that in
Oh
him.
yeah, but so it's almost like you're saying these things, but we both went through marriage. Like, okay, let's just try to make our spouse happy, and it comes at a price. Sometimes you have to learn to say no. Sometimes you have to disagree.
My family
Yeah.
used to say, Gary, when I got divorced, I remember my wife was going to court. I want the pool maintenance guy, the landscaper, the house cleaner. I said, look at this bitch. And my family, you know what they said? Gary, you created this monster.
Yeah.
And it's
Look,
true.
since you said monster, let's just talk, because you see Bad Lieutenant with Harvey Keitel?
No.
Your wife is like, she's like that guy, but in the world of marriages.
Hey, listen to me. I'm the boss, not Aunt Wendy. When it's your turn to use the bathroom, you tell Aunt Wendy to get the fuck out of the bathroom.
So she cheated on you multiple times, right? Which you think is the opposite, right? The guys go out and cheat. She was almost like the man in the relationship.
Absolutely. The way I looked at it, Tom, was the cheating. Nobody likes getting cheated on. It's not
Right.
good for your.
And by the
your
way,
men-
did any of you guys cheat?
I
that
did
was
not.
that was the cause of my divorce. But I want to go back on the cheating.
Oh, you
statistics.
bastard! You cheated!
You know
How
what?
dare you?
You know what? I gotta own it. I gotta own it. But when you look at the stats on infidelity,
So you would have
marriage,
still been married if she didn't catch you cheating. I mean, is there
Well,
possibilities?
it wasn't like it was a combination. She knew what was going on, and I fessed up. But again, I want to go back to the stats because everyone kind of thinks it's just universally the guy. But when you look at the stats, really, it's about 85% of men and 60% of women.
Right.
They're just more quiet about what's going on. They don't divulge these
I
things.
I think guys don't
understand.
either because you don't want to say my wife cheated on me.
Well, in your case, yeah,
interesting.
you don't want to say that, but
Right.
I guess, yeah.
Well, I said it-
But
I just said it to
you have-
everybody in
you
the
have
world.
to look at that.
On some level, I understand why you're cheating because you were just unhappy, right? And
Yeah,
so
it doesn't make it correct,
Were
but
you
I mean, I
cheating
gotta
with
own
one
that.
person, or did you have multiple partners?
More than one affair.
Wow.
But, yeah, you know,
Wow.
and again,
But-
I'm
but
not
it- but-
proud
but
of
not
it.
at the
You
same
know, but we're
time.
going back to the
No,
situation.
at the same time.
Well, that's different. My wife. Well, I want to point the difference because, like, what Carlos is a little, and I'm not making
But really
excuses.
quick, I want to get it just to
Okay.
hold that thought. Just so you became a serial. What's the word? Philanderer?
Serial cheater?
Serial cheater.
No, that was the word for it.
And so, did you break up with these girls?
Well, yeah, you realize that it was wrong.
And you wanted to
and
move on?
I always tell people, like, by the time somebody's, in bed with somebody else, your problem started so much further back. And that
Again,
the
I'm not judging.
No, listen,
I
I'm
understand,
saying-
but what I'm trying to get is the breakdown of how this stuff happened. In other words, so when was the first time you cheated?
I guess
How many years into
I
the
was
marriage?
in residency, so
And you
it was a couple of years into the marriage, maybe
a couple
4
of
or
years.
5.
Right. Okay. How long did you go out with that person? How long did you cheat with that person?
That was very brief. You know, that was about 3 months, and then I came home and just
And how did it
what was
end?
going on. You know, we had to. You know, it had to end. You know, we were both.
No, but I'm saying,
married.
did you break it up or did she break it up? She was married too.
We were both married, and you know, but the thing is, we were in residency. We both identified with each other, and the friendship crossed the line in a big way.
Right.
So it was about 3 months, and then I confessed to my wife, "Hey, listen, you know, I had an affair," and we
Right.
went through the marriage counseling and all that other stuff.
So when you confessed the first time, your wife didn't leave you.
Yeah, we went through marriage counseling. And
Right.
whatnot.
Very different wives I'm getting now. Your ex-wife is a nutcase, and at least like in
I
Carlos's
wouldn't say.
case.
I don't think I would compare to his ex as far as statistically how many, but you know, and again, I'm not proud of it. I say
How
that
many
I
times
own
did you cheat in total?
I think it's twice.
Twice,
yeah.
right. And the second time,
I'm still with that person the second time, you know, because I realized, again, we identified with each other and a friendship turned into more than a friendship. I have to confess to what's going on. My ex is young enough that I wanted her to be able to go out and meet somebody else. You know, I didn't think there was any sense of dragging it out. And then she's 60. It's like, listen, I've been in this relationship for X amount of time where now that your looks have waned, you know, you're gonna have less of a chance of meeting people. So it was just, you know, you have to face, you know, everything has consequences. So it's like, okay, my actions had consequences. I faced up to it and I faced the music. But I'm with somebody now who fundamentally we agree on the basics, and the relationship has really stood through. I've been through hell, and so is my current girlfriend.
Right.
We've really been put through hell at the hand of my ex. The amount of animosity is like, it has to make sense. You can't go after somebody to the point that you sink yourself. And I used to tell my ex, if you take me out, you're coming down with me. Her actions don't make sense anywhere along the line, and she suffered,
Right.
and now she's, you know, she created a situation and likes to play the victim.
right. And did you go back the second time and tell your wife, or she found out about the second
No,
time?
I told her. I basically fessed up to what was going on, and
Right.
she was the one who made the official call.
Yeah, but I don't
Consequences.
understand though. You're with this woman now still, so that means you have a very good relationship, I assume, with her.
Yeah.
Right? And I get the sense, again, just from what you're telling me, that subconsciously you wanted the divorce, but you might have been a little bit, you didn't want to,
Well, the
go
problem
through
was,
with it. You don't want to hurt her, your wife.
Yeah.
Even though you wanted to be with the other woman.
Yeah, there was some fundamental differences. Like, I have much more in common now with the woman I'm with than I had with my ex-wife.
Right.
And again,
And she's supporting you now, right? I mean, on some level, is that fair to say
my-
that she's the breadwinner? I mean, because you say, you're not married.
we're not married,
Oh, you
and
just go out.
we don't live together.
Right.
You know,
but when
so
you go out, dinners, this and that, what happens?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure, we split it. You know,
You
like,
split
you know,
it.
I'll pay for this, you pay for that. We're not that kind of couple with like, my money's my money, your money's your money.
Sure.
It just kind of ebbs and flows as
and
far
she
as that.
sticks by you regardless of the
You know, I
because
gotta
she
say,
understands your situation, I guess.
There's been plenty of times where I said, really, just go off on your own, like, save yourself, because
Right.
you know, my divorce was so bad.
And she
I
still
went
sticks
through-
by you?
She's been through hell.
Right.
Yeah, she's really been through hell.
Right. I'm assuming the intimacy in the boudoir. is-
Well, I mean, that's a healthy part of the relationship, yeah. But I mean, there's just much more in common. Which, you know, what really builds a relationship is the friendship.
Right.
You know, and I don't mean to go off
I
course,
agree.
but like, you
I
have
agree.
to really be good friends and see eye to eye and be able to adapt and grow with that person. And with my current girlfriend, we've been able to do that.
Right. Let's get into you really quick. So your wife, how many times did she cheat on you?
Honestly, I sort of suspected it throughout the marriage, and there was hints, but you know, like, it's one of these things you don't want to believe because
Yeah.
to me that would mean the marriage is over and then I'm not with my kids anymore. I stayed faithful, and I had plenty of opportunities not to. I traveled a lot, but I used to say to myself, you know what? I'm not going to not cheat because I don't want to cheat on her.
Right.
I'm not doing it because I don't believe in it.
Right.
What bothered me about I don't know how many, at least 3, but there's probably 5, 6, 7 guys, you know, throughout the marriage. But there's 3 at the same time. And what bothered me, the way I looked at it was, it'd be one thing to fall out of love, find a new guy, I love this guy, I want to be with him.
Yeah.
To me, that's different than as I'm working long weeks, taking care of the kids so that she can work part-time, go to the gym, go to bowling, go out drinking, have a house cleaner,
Right.
and then go out and screw 3 guys. To me, that was a slap in the face. And almost, and I'm making excuse for Carlos, but he fell in love with somebody else, and it's wrong, but that's different than going out and screwing all these people outside. That's just selfish, in my mind anyway. That's the way I look at
She's
it.
a sociopathic narcissist,
Well,
so
she
she's
is-
all out for herself.
I'm not sure narcissist. She was diagnosed as an antisocial personality disorder borderline personality disorder, and a sociopath.
That's quite the trifecta.
Well, it was. So I don't want to give her the narcissist because I don't know if they say possibly she was. I don't believe she was.
Maybe not clinical, but,
Yeah.
but she encouraged the kids to steal.
Literally would encourage the kids to, I remember one story where they was doing some construction across the street from my house, and she wanted some wood from it.
Yeah.
And she says, oh, we're going to go get the wood. I said, nah, we're not going to do that. I personally don't want to steal. She says, well, I'm going to take the kids over there.
Right.
And then the kids would joke that we have to steal the stuff when you're not home, Dad, because Mom says you won't let us do it. Now, to her, it was funny. It was like, it wasn't a person. We're stealing from the school, the construction company. But I was like, who teaches their kids?
I agree.
And in my mind, I'm saying, what lesson are we teaching the kids? I used to have the kids volunteer, and she would say, no, don't go. Your father's going to make you go volunteer at the church.
Right. And by the way, I'm very impressed that you buy organic.
Yeah.
And so you tried to buy organic for the kids,
Right.
right? You were paying the bills, obviously, right?
Yep,
So
making a
you
good
said
living.
to her, go to the supermarket, instead of buying the shit stuff, buy the organic stuff,
Right.
which is basically the easiest thing in the world. Instead of going to aisle 3, you go to aisle 2 or wherever
Right.
they are, right? And she fought you on that too, right?
Yeah. This is a passive-aggressive behavior.
Yeah.
But I used to do all the shopping because I said, look, she didn't buy what I wanted her to buy.
Yeah.
Which was healthier food for the kids. So we could afford it. Raise my kids on healthier food.
Right.
And I was in agriculture. I saw the differences. So I used to do all the food shopping in the house. But occasionally you would run out. I would ask her to go. So we need milk. She comes home and she's got the cheapest milk. I said, why didn't you get the organic milk? Did you forget?
Right.
Well, I don't want to buy it.
Right.
Well, why?
No, but that shows me a human being that just she doesn't want to be controlled. She wants to wants to do her own thing,
Yep.
even at the expense of her kids.
In that sentence, you can extrapolate that to the whole situation through the divorce. That, believe it or not, you're talking about milk,
Right.
but you're
We're
not.
going to get to the
You're
kids in a
talking
second.
about
I have
life.
some questions about the kids.
You're
but
100% right.
dirtying up your toothbrush.
Yeah.
That is just fucking criminal, man. That's morally criminal. It's just
This is after I filed for divorce. We lived together.
there's something evil about that.
Yeah.
What did she do? How did she stick in the toilet bowl?
She actually used to put like preparation H on it
Oh,
and
my
clean
God.
it. Now the thing is, when I started to know that she was mentally ill, I had hired a big private investigator on Long Island.
Right.
So he warned me.
Right.
So I protected myself. I always had a fake toothbrush that I would use.
Wow.
And hidden on the valance
You
in the
poor
bathroom.
bastard. You had that's just absurd.
Imagine
you had to live in this world.
We lived together for over a year without talking, saying a word, because I wanted to share custody, not give up
Man.
custody.
Putting Visine in your mom's drink
And
your
my drink. Yep. Yep.
Again, evil.
Yeah.
I knew a barmaid when I was working as a waiter years ago. And she used to, whatever customer she didn't like, boom, couple drops.
Really? So I never heard of that until her.
You get the runs for like 2
It
weeks.
can actually kill you, Tom.
Really?
There's been colleges where people have died from the Visine. It does something, but normally it just gives major
I'm
diarrhea.
jumping the gun, but did you ever get the sense that she might have been planning your demise? Was it murder going on? Murder
A couple times she had slipped and told me. We were driving, I remember, down 347 in Smithtown, and there was a pond on the side of the road. And I commented, I never realized it was there. She said, I knew it was there because I used to pass it on the way home from work. And I used to say, if I ever killed my husband, her first husband, this is where I would bury him, because I found out it was so deep that nobody would ever figure it out. Now, after when I was going through it, I told people, listen, if I ever disappear, and this is not a joke, this is true, that I said, look there.
Right. Did you lock your door? You lock your bedroom door at night?
Yeah, of course. When I was in the room at night, but
Right.
I come to find out that she wouldn't never be the one to really kill me. She would probably hire somebody because she was too smart. She didn't want to get caught.
And also laughing about getting some shitty toilet paper to even fuck that up even more. I mean, this is just like she lives and breathes this stuff.
She joked to her boyfriend how she just went to the dollar store and bought the bad toilet paper so that when my mother and me were shitting our brains out, that our fingers would rip through the toilet paper. I have all proof of this because I had a private investigator. So it's not like, hey, this is a crazy story, but she would joke about it.
Right.
To her boyfriend. They would joke about how I had my kids for their birthday party, and she would leave the birthday party and leave me with all the boys at the birthday party, saying she was so sick she had to go home. We had a pool party, and she was joking with the boyfriend that, I hope nobody drowns at the party while we're out having sex and Gary's watching all the kids.
Oh my God! Putting cat shit in the bed.
Cat
She would
shit.
put cat shit in your bed.
Which is disgusting. But I used to, at first, I couldn't in my mind wrap
Was
around.
she smeared in the sheets?
No, she would just drop it in there. there. But at the beginning, I used to say, maybe the cats are like mad about the divorce and they're shitting in my bed. So the last time I did, I made my bed perfect.
Yeah.
And I came home from a business trip,
Yeah.
and I pulled the covers back, and there was the cat shit in my bed again. Wow. And she would do it she would always try to do something when I came home from a business trip.
Wow, I mean, you're talking about a woman that is just miserable. It's a wounded soul on the inside. She's a wounded soul.
You're right. I actually did. At the time, I didn't know it. But now that I do research on sociopaths and people with her disorders, they're actually not happy.
Yeah.
I used to think she was the happiest person in the world, but then I come to find out that people who do these things, whether the excessive cheating, not just the one new boyfriend, excessive cheating. I found out she cheated on her first husband, so it's a pattern.
Right.
The drinking, she was an alcoholic.
Right. You didn't see any of this in the beginning?
At the really beginning, no. It took me I would say 3 years, and I saw signs, but she was very smart.
She saw you coming, right?
I believe
that safe to say?
Absolutely.
Again, I'm not judging you, but
no, I believe that
kind of goofing on you a little bit. But
I do. I think that these people find their victims. Just like you meet people who were abused by their husbands, and they go, okay, they got abused by their husband once, but then they get into another relationship and their husband abused. I've never hit a woman, and I've never had a woman hit me. So I believe that she found something innate that they knew that she could get away with it with me. And I think Carlos's wife, the same thing. They found a sucker or, you know.
But I mean, you're comparing the wives. I don't think, first of all, you cheated.
Okay.
Right? So she had good reason to, you know.
Yeah.
This guy, you did everything right. You were like the perfect guy. I mean, you adopted her son
from her first marriage.
And you said you treated him as if you loved your biological kids.
Yep, absolutely. And even in therapy, they'd ask her, what's your complaints about? Because she would say, oh, he's not a good husband. They said, what's the complaints? And her biggest complaint, God strike me dead, her biggest complaint was that I wanted her to buy organic milk. And when she didn't, she could, not that I said to her, but she could tell that I was upset about it. That was her biggest complaint.
Right. It was your idea for divorce, right?
Yep.
At what point did that happen? Did you make the decision into the 11-year marriage?
That's a tough question. I don't think I answered that one on the other show. So what happened was, at some point when I realized there was a mental illness, I realized she wasn't a good mother, she wasn't a good human being. I realized it probably 7 years in, and my mind was, I'm not going to let my kids, because I knew that there's a possibility she would get custody, I won't let them be raised with her. They're better off with me there. I'll just be miserable, and I'll put on a happy face, and I will learn to peacefully coexist with her so that I can be with my kids, and my kids won't have to go through a bad divorce.
Right. You said we're getting a divorce, though, right?
So I did that for a couple of years.
You came to her and said, I want a divorce.
But because I let it go on, it got so bad where she would leave the kids alone to go out with men. You know, it just got
How many men did she cheat on with?
Well, at this one point, there was 3 simultaneously.
Simultaneously?
One was her best friend's husband across the street.
Right, which just blows my mind. And now up to this day, are they still friends, best friends?
I don't believe they are anymore. I still live across the street, which is funny because they stopped talking to me.
So how many years in, we said?
So about 7, I realized it, but I said I'm going to stick it out until the kids are emancipated.
When did you put the cameras in?
Well, I started recording after we filed. I didn't do it before, but I had a private investigator.
When was the file?
Let's say 9 years in. 10 years in. And 6 months before that, I hired a private investigator because I knew it was going to go down.
So the whole thing was like the last year of your marriage was the
as soon as she was fine up until she was putting Visine in my drinks.
Right.
The story we're talking about. I hadn't filed for divorce. I would have never known it, but I hired a private investigator because we had the therapy.
And you put cams in the cars? How did
I put a tracking device in her vehicle.
Tracking device, but that's just GPS though. How about audio video?
No, because at the time GPSs weren't as good as they are, so I had to unfortunately hire private investigators to sit in the bar.
How much money did this all cost you? In the hundreds of thousands?
In the
tens of thousands?
$300,000 to $400,000 range.
To track her?
Oh, no, just the tracking.
No,
probably,
I'm talking about hiring an investigator.
Maybe
all the
probably $15,000 to $20,000. Wow. It was $600 a night. Every night I had her followed.
Wow.
$600 a night.
Right.
And
but you were making good money, though, I assume.
Yeah, I was making good money, and it was my kids.
Did you have your company at the time as well? You did?
No, I worked for a company at the time.
You worked for a company, but you were making good money working for a company?
Yeah.
And you must have saved a lot of money, which
all
disappeared with...
All disappeared. I went into it with almost $1 million, came out with it about $400,000 in debt.
Oh, you poor bastard.
So there's a spread of about $1.3 million.
Wow, that just boggles my mind.
Yeah.
With the kids, this is the weird thing. It's like... You came into court And were you crying at what point in court? Do you get emotional?
Yeah, sometimes, but I for the most part, I kept a good
kept it
persona.
together, right.
I think so.
At what point did you go in the house and you realized you were erased from the house and you got really emotional?
So at one point, she got an order of protection against me, which is you go to court. She said he hit me in front of my daughter. I want him out of the house because she realized the custody wasn't going well for her and she could lose. So we call this the silver bullet. You go to court. Her lawyer told her to do it. His name is Don Schlimbaum. And because I had a private investigator, I knew that he told her to do it. And so I protected myself. I had recordings on me at all times.
Right.
She didn't know that.
Right.
So I get kicked out of the house. And long story short, I come back because I go to trial. I win. About 6 weeks goes by. The judge says, go back to your house, Mr. Jacobs. It's your house. You know, I'm sorry for what happened. I go back to my house, and I'm literally, Tom, I'm erased. Every picture of me and my family is gone.
Wow.
My clothing is gone. I'm moved out of my bedroom. There's bolts put on the doors. It's not, the house was trashed. That's the one point, I think, when I hit the lowest, when I literally broke down. I called my girlfriend and my parents. I said, you're not going to believe what just happened. My house was destroyed. My life was destroyed. My kids never, ever from that day again said they love me. My relationship, it broke the bond.
Let's just talk about your kids, because this is the one thing, and I understand both sides, it's the one thing that I just can't understand, okay? She accused you of sexually abusing your daughter.
Previously, not even, she said years earlier he sexually abused.
Right. In other words, there's a lot of shit that went down with you and your kids, right? Your daughter went in to testify against you in court, right?
Not for the sexual abuse.
Not for the sexual abuse, right? That you hit her.
That I hit her mother,
your wife,
and my daughter went in with her to say that she witnessed me hitting her mother.
Right. So here's the deal. I don't know anything about your parental skills. You strike me as a good guy. I'm assuming you were a good father. Right. And you had a good relationship with your kids.
Absolutely.
Right. All throughout. They
Absolutely.
loved you.
Number
I love
one
your
priority
daddy.
in my life. Yeah.
Hugging. Were you intimate with them?
Very. Yeah. I was the hug. I love you.
Right.
I
Right.
was
Right.
that
Which
person.
most fathers don't do, or not most, but a lot of fathers.
Right. No,
a lot of parents in general don't do that. Right. Mothers and fathers sometimes. Yep. And so I just don't understand why. Your daughter, she was how old at the time when she went to court?
She was about 11.
11, okay. I understand that your wife is so good at what she does. She's a great manipulator, that she managed to seep into the kid's mind, and she manipulated it.
Right.
And so the kid goes into court.
Well, actually, she at that point, she went to the police and gave testimony to the police. I think, if I remember, she spoke to the judge in private, not in an open
I see, okay.
court. But she told the police.
The point is, though, that she did it, though.
She corroborated the whole story, the way my wife told it
but
to
she
him.
never saw, the kids never saw, I'm assuming you didn't hit with your wife. No. The kids never saw you hit the wife.
My wife admitted in court that I never, after I proved.
Right, well, you told me, you in the video, you were saying that you bluffed her.
I bluffed her and told her I had hidden cameras.
Right.
And she admitted to the courts that it was a lie. But now what does my daughter do? She just went to court, and they explained to her that they told her, listen, this is very difficult, but you may be putting your father in jail, so don't lie to us. And she still lied.
Right.
But now her mother admits that she lied. Now what does she do? Go, yeah, I lied too? So that was a very difficult, and she never looked at me the same. I think there was a guilt. I don't know what goes on in their head, but imagine the pressure.
You think that's what it is? Because I wanted to ask you, your kids are all grown up now, and what happens is that, what I believe is that if a parent poisons their children's mind at a young age, when that child grows up, eventually they're going to realize, because they're able to make decisions on their own and figure stuff out, they're able to realize what a great manipulator my mother was.
I don't know, are they?
At this stage, well,
there's people in cults who are in their 20s who get manipulated to kill themselves. Mind, it's the mind. It can be.
I understand that,
brainwashing's
but
difficult.
I understand that, but yeah, brainwashing. I get all that, but what combats that brainwashing is that you had a foundation with your children where you hugged them and told them you loved them.
Right.
So I just don't get how now they're adults and they haven't figured out, mom was a manipulator.
Or maybe they have and they can't.
They can't bring
rationalize
themselves
it
to do it.
it.
Have you reached out? Have you
Yeah,
tried
of course.
to?
Yeah, I could. I have my phone. I could show you.
Still up to this day.
I slowed down the last 2 years because you get to some point, Tom. You say, you know what? I have to live my life.
Right. Do they respond back? No,
that's sending my messages.
Goes to voicemail. And the emails
text
don't get
messages.
returned.
They're read. They're not text. You can see they're read. They're iPhones. But I mean, imagine the pain when you send your kids, "I love you," happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, and you don't get a response. Or every Father's Day, Tom, staring at my phone for 6 years. till midnight hoping that I'm going to get that Happy Father's Day. It's too painful for me. I have to go on with my life. I can't let this destroy my life anymore.
Your son said, quote unquote, why does daddy always have to stick his penis in our faces?
Right.
Again, is that all manipulation?
He never
I'm
said
assuming you didn't stick your penis in your son's face.
He never said it. Actually, this is what my ex-wife told CPS that she told him.
Oh, I was under the impression that he. Oh, I see.
Thank God when they spoke to CPS in private, she didn't prep him good enough, and he said no, of course not. He never did anything like that.
Right.
So
okay.
thank God that didn't. But I mean, imagine that somebody goes to court. I'm accused of sexual abuse.
Well, there was one thing that I felt was very abusive that you did to your kids. You forced them to go to a Broadway play.
And I was found guilty of child abuse for that.
That is abusive. I'm making a joke, but I'm just saying.
I was found guilty of child abuse.
For forcing your kids, so this is it goes to show you how fucked up the court system is.
Sure
is that there's an absurdity to that.
So absurd that I admitted it. She said, did you force your kids, because my wife called CPS on me, and did you force them to go see Fiddler on the Roof against their will? And I said, yes, I forced them to do many things, to go to school, to go to the... And this woman literally said, okay, good, now I'm guilty of child abuse.
Wow.
Now, thank God I did have a judge a year later who reversed it and said it was ridiculous. But imagine for a year having that label
that
as
was
a
the
child
woman,
abuse.
the judge, the female judge?
No, this was a man judge who found me not guilty. It's from CPS.
No, who found you guilty of taking...
Believe it or not, it's not even a judge. It's a CPS worker. Her name is Pamela Hammond, a 20-something-year-old social worker.
Your kids would take pictures when you drive over 60 miles an hour? They'd take pictures
on their phones. They would take videos and show them to their mother. And then I would be in court a week later, and they would say, so you speed when you're in the cars.
Did you do anything wrong in your marriage?
In the marriage? Oh, I'm sure I wasn't perfect. You know, I worked a lot.
So you were absentee sometimes?
Not really. I was there for everything for the kids.
But you workaholic.
Yeah, but I guess if
you weren't as present.
I probably should have, look, I was building for the kids, but my job was very flexible, and I never missed the kids' school events. I was the one who took them to the doctors, took them to their activities. But yeah, of course, you could always do more. Looking back, as you get older, you say, who cared about the job?
It's very telling about your wife. Your wife told your son that if he ever goes with you again, he'll be dead to her.
She will never love him. You'll be dead to me. And that's what gets into what you asked about earlier. My wife's still alive, unfortunately. But you know what? Even as an adult, she told him very clearly, you will be dead to me and I will never love you. And admitted to doing this, by the way. I heard it, and she admitted to it. So even as an adult, if my kids know in their 20s and 30s that if they ever talk to me, they will lose their mother and her side of the family.
Right.
Who wants to lose their mother?
Did you have any dark thoughts about your wife? You would take a voodoo doll or something? And
we used to joke about, I won't say I didn't have the thoughts, Tom. I mean, it would be, to say, listen, I remember I went to...
Because you're not a murderer.
No, but
you did
I did think, is it a fantasy? I remember going to Raoul Felder, a big Manhattan attorney.
Yeah, I know.
And I hired him for my case, but he said to me...
so was he the guy that eventually...
He was one of my attorneys. He ended up being my second to
Raoul
last.
was like top of the line.
Right.
So was he the guy that kind of got you out of this mess?
Actually, it was a guy who worked for him, Robert Hiltzik, who sort of did. But he told me, remember this day, Gary, if you killed her today, in 5 years from now, you would be out of jail and have all your money. And my divorce went on another 8 years after that. More time thinking about me doing it was thinking about it happened. Everyone used to send me, karma, karma, karma. And I used to, every time I'd see a car that looked like hers, hope it's the karma kicking in, and she crashed into a pole and killed herself. I did, honestly.
So Child Protection Services, in your estimation, is a corrupt organization?
Corrupt, evil, untrained.
How much of it is, would you say?
To me, it should be abolished.
There must be good people.
Listen, in theory, there should be a great thing for CPS.
Right.
They are overstepping.
Right. Now, we're talking about Long Island now. We don't know about New York City, and based on your personal experience.
I think New York City is better, but I meet people from all over the country.
And they've told you the same thing?
And they've told me that the same thing, but I got to tell you, judges know it's corrupt. In fact, in my case, when I was found guilty, my wife said, oh, good, case over, I get custody. He was found guilty of child abuse. And the judge, knowing how bad this was, he said, you know what? I'm ignoring it. I'm guilty of child abuse, and the judge is saying I'm going to ignore it. It's a horrible organization. It should be shut down and rebuilt to protect kids. It actually doesn't protect the kids who need to be protected. It's used as a tool.
I was reading this article, Divorce and Child Custody, Men Cry Foul. They spoke about your case. We discussed it already. $680,000 worth of arrears, but then you got bumped back down to, what, 4 or something?
400,000.
In another case, a father named Jake was banned from seeing his children by something called the Civil Protection Order.
Well, we call an order of protection. Yeah.
Right. In court documents, Jake's wife said he went through dangerous mood swings, blocked her internet access, and tried to obstruct her from driving away with the kids. Within a month and a half, I lost my kids, I lost my wife, I lost my house. Boom. Just like that. A third situation doesn't involve marriage or divorce. Justin, who also asked CNN not to use his last name, fathered a son during a brief relationship. He learned his name wasn't listed on the child's birth certificate, and he didn't get equal custody of the son. So these are just certain situations that go on. They're not rare,
Tom. In all worlds?
Again, in Long Island, but you think how prevalent is this?
I think it's all over the United States. I mean, there's
New York State, throughout the country, you say?
Yeah, there's some places where...
Because why? Why can you make that determination? Because you have your show and you do a lot of people,
Americans for Legal Reform is the whole United States.
Right.
As you know, the CNN...
And you hear from a lot of people from many different states?
All day long. This show is going to air. We're going to both get emails. If people are going to find us on Facebook from all over the United States and all over the world.
Right.
This is a problem.
It says, what if dads can't pay child support, which in your case...
I had signed a really terrible divorce stipulation. In the end, it made me responsible for $15,000 a month. It was really, honestly, like about 95% of my salary. Now, people ask me, why did you do that? During the course of the whole breakup, I ended up having a nervous breakdown, was hospitalized. Within 9 days after my discharge, I'm signing these papers.
Is that why you lost your practice? Because you had a nervous breakdown? Because that was
no, I didn't lose that. That was one. Basically, that's how I ended up getting ousted from my original practice and went off on my own.
How did you get ousted?
Basically, she just cut me off. You know, when I got discharged, it was like
no, from your practice,
exactly.
My
partner, my ex-partner. She was the senior. She was the senior partner. So after I had the nervous breakdown, she's like, you know what? Let's have because I was like, okay, we have this agreement.
Right.
She's like, well, you know what? Let's just cut ties, and we're going to go through the lawyers regarding my contract.
Your patients, though, they stood by you. Couldn't you go off on your own? And
I did go off on my own.
Oh, you did.
That's when my patients came up with the $160,000 to help me get started. More than half of that went to my ex-wife.
Right. Your partner, though, she
cut me and screwed me out of $1 million.
Because she cut you off, she also lost a lot of patients, you're saying, right?
She ended up, she lost, I would say, about half of the practice.
Right.
At least.
Now, when you went off on your own, couldn't you? You couldn't maintain that?
No, because I was always paying out. So I was, from the beginning, I was trying to pay out.
So you were hemorrhaging money. Anything that was coming was going right back out.
Pretty much, most of it. And then, I had to pay for vaccines that should have been supplied by the state while I was waiting for the state process to approve me. So on my credit card, I'm putting out all this money to pay for supplies that I'm not getting reimbursed for. So it was quite a problem.
I find all this stuff really. What do you think? You think there's going to be? You think there's going to be any good news down the line where eventually the court system is going to change? And because you have to change a whole, I mean, this is just like trying to, I mean, how does this happen? We talked about wrongful convictions, and they just recently passed a prosecutorial conduct bill. Governor Cuomo signed into play. Are you hopeful that it's going to? You're not hopeful?
No, honestly.
Because it's just a virus running through the whole system. It's not one or two. It's just a whole
If it was a rogue judge or
systemic thing.
It's the system is built on it. There's so many lawyers, so many judges, so many jails, so many social workers.
Do you think that in this world, because I asked this question about wrongful convictions, do you think it's because many people, they go into the system, whether lawyers or judges, whatever it is, and they go into the system and they want to do the right thing, but then they discover all these shenanigans going on, and they're too afraid to speak out because they fear they're going to become ostracized, so they just go along with the system. They say, this is the way the system is, I'm going to do the same shit.
Listen, I think a lot of lawyers go in that I'm going to save the world and do the right thing.
Right.
And there are some that try to do it, and then they get shut up, they get ousted. But the ones that succeed are the ones financially who play along with the system. It's like, you are who your friends are, right? So you're surrounded all day. And I think they lose sight of the fact that these are families they're destroying. People say, how do these judges sleep at night? I think they sleep fine. I mean, imagine you go into court and you're sitting there, you have 30 seconds in front of a judge, and they give you an order of protection to remove your kids. In 30 seconds, they destroyed your life. How do you do that? But they lose sight of that. And that becomes the norm, and it's acceptable.
Yeah.
It's acceptable that a father sees his kid from Wednesday for dinner for one Wednesday for a dinner for 2 hours at Friendly's, and every other weekend. That becomes the norm. It's been going on.
You think the Me Too movement has made what goes on in the courts, has exacerbated even that much more?
I haven't seen that, but what I do see from the Me Too movement is that you can make a difference.
Right.
And until there's an upswell of people who are screwed, not just men, not just women, get together. The problem is with our group, per se, we're so damaged from going through it that you have no money, you suffered PTSD, and you don't want to look back. But of course it could change.
You're also afraid of speaking out because there's repercussions. Once you
Of course, but look at the African Americans. Martin Luther King. He rallied everybody, and they had change.
Yeah.
It can happen.
Are you that guy?
Well, no, I certainly can't compare myself to
No, I'm not
Martin
saying
Luther
no.
King,
Of course not. But you do rally
I try to
people.
rally. I have a very hard time. But we do. Carlos and I do protests, and 20 people show up.
And you built, though, something. I mean, you got, what, 1,200 followers on Facebook?
Yeah,
I have
a lot.
You built that up.
Yeah, I have a lot of followers, and people watch my show, Long Island Backstory. I have almost 1,000 subscribers.
Right.
And some of my shows, 15, 20,000 people. But it's going to take more than that. It's going to take people to show up at protests. And then the politics.
Are you known as that guy in Long Island?
Oh, yeah.
You're known as that guy?
Yeah, they don't like me in the court. And like Carlos mentioned, repercussions. I'm not even in the system, but yet I go to court to advocate for him, and a judge abuses me, a court officer assaults me, they kick me out of the courtroom, I'm harassed constantly.
Right.
There is repercussions, and not everybody can do it.
Are there any repercussions outside? Do you think people are stalking you?
You know, I'm not a conspiracy. Yeah, of course I do. I sleep with a gun because I'm going up against.
Do you really?
Absolutely.
You sleep with a gun under your pillow?
On top of it, but yeah, I do sleep with a loaded gun. No, seriously, this is big. This
Even
is
though
not
you live in the
crazy.
house by yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I do watch my back when I go, and I'm not saying, hey, I'm paranoid, but there are people who don't like me. You got judges who don't like me.
Did you go out specifically to take target practice and all that?
I did. I missed.
You didn't strike me as a guy
fucking
that had
missed.
a gun in your.
No,
you weren't a gun guy.
I never had a gun. I went to get a gun. I was denied a pistol permit because of my divorce.
Right.
But you can go out and get a rifle. So I went and I got a rifle, and I had a friend who's a cop showing me how to use it.
Right.
I barely remember. I remember shooting the.
You got a rifle sitting next to you on the pillow?
Yeah. Yeah, because I can't get a gun permit.
God,
it's a little big, but you know.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I remember shooting and I missed the target. So the guy said, "Well, it's okay because if somebody comes in and you shoot this rifle, I got these things that like spread out or something."
Shotgun.
And shotgun. Yeah, and if you just go like that, the person. But listen, I got to fight back. You know.
Do you feel a sense of fear on that level that you're going to be somebody's going to come at you from the court system?
Yeah, I don't sleep with a gun, but I think that there's definitely going to be, you're known, and then I think that the court system knows who you are. There's going to be repercussions.
Wow. Did you have a full head of hair during your marriage? In other words, because what I'm saying is the stress.
It's sort of a joke, but honestly, I gained a lot. I mean, maybe being polite, you're gonna say, but I gained a lot of weight. You don't need healthy because you start to say, who cares? They took away my kids,
right?
And where are you going to find happiness?
So you live with a tremendous sense of stress every day. Because
I do too much stress. Yeah.
Right.
I live with.
On the one hand, you could say your life is good though because you got a good woman in your life.
I have a great girlfriend. She has a granddaughter that we love. I have a loving family, and if you look at it, I've met friends like Carlos and many friends that I never would have met if I didn't go through this. So you could look at the positive side, but there is a negative. And for me, I tell people, I liked it better when I was ignorant, Tom. And just like you mentioned about the wrongful convictions, you got sucked into it, right? We met Jeffrey Deskovic.
Yeah, I got sucked into it because I'm just a person that I'm bothered by all the shit that's going on now.
Me too.
I'm very bothered in general. But I'm bothered by the political situation that's going on, the social situation. The world is in upheaval.
I feel
I learned more about the court system. I'm learning more about the divorce court system right now. When I was a kid, I thought, right overcomes wrong.
Right. We
Right?
all did.
The good always wins over bad. But you're starting to think that's just not the fucking case anymore.
Tom,
it drives me insane.
You nailed it. Carlos and I said we used to go into court, and I went in thinking I was going to get justice.
Yeah.
The judge would be fair. I liked it better when I was ignorant. It's a burden for me to know that every single day there are people being wrongfully convicted, that people are sitting in jail right now for stuff they didn't do, that fathers are losing custody, that mothers don't see their children, that mothers are getting CPS reports. This troubles me. It truly eats at me every day.
Have you given up hope on your kids now? I assume not.
That's an interesting thing. Did I give up hope? Yes and no.
I know you write them, they don't respond to you.
But mentally, I
don't.
don't.
Have you ever thought about reaching out to them in person, finding them somewhere?
I probably could, but the problem is you want to get the rejection and put yourself, I've done it in the past.
Right.
Do I want that?
I would imagine for you, with this whole child thing, because you had 3 kids that you love so much and you still love, and now you feel the sense of...
well, it's an emptiness. It's a hole.
Emptiness... you feel maybe the fear that you'll never see him again. That's a fear.
I've almost come to
So you've become resigned
I
to
think
it.
you try to go through a healing process.
You have to, right?
Right. You can't be stuck in it. And when we talk,
Right.
this is like if you lose a child, you're angry, you're sad, you go through this grieving process,
Right.
and eventually you learn to deal with it.
Right. On one hand, we could say you gave up, right? And that might sort of make you look like a bad father.
Right.
But hold on.
I don't
but
wanna
the thing
say
is,
that
is that
exactly.
you gave up because you need to protect yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
And listen, people said, what happened? Of course I want to see my kids. Everything I see reminds me of my children. I do things, and I was just on a vacation, and I was thinking I'd been there with my son, and I said, you know what, I wish I could share this with my kids. You can't help that thought, but I want those kids, I want a relationship that they were before the divorce and a loving relationship. I had bad years with my children, as you talked about, with them spying on me, stealing from me, being used as a pawn.
Do you ever feel any animosity towards
yes,
them? You love
absolutely.
them, but...
I do, Tom, I do. People can't understand. I do feel there's a little bit of anger, but I would forgive. But it would have to be that relationship of a father-son, a father-daughter relationship. I can't go back to the abuse again.
You got a good relationship with your kids?
Thank God with two of them. My oldest two, I'm alienated from. They've been programmed to dislike me, to hate me.
Right.
My youngest two, I still have a great relationship with, thank God.
Right.
But one of the terms that Gary was kind of alluding to is you grieve a child that's still alive. There's no closure. The pain goes forever. And even
Well, but according to Gary, on some level, there is closure because you become resigned to the
Not
fact
really.
that you'll never...
But it's not closure
you needed
because
that closure for yourself.
Because
It's
in
a
my mind,
sheltering.
it's like I think your mind
It's like a
tries
faux closure. It's like...
it compartmentalizes it. I try to put it away so I can't cry every day. I can't cry every night. Some people do. Many people do. I can't do that for myself. It's going to kill me.
You want to cry on the show here a little bit?
Physically.
Any tears? I can't get any tears out of you?
Yeah, well, we'll see what the stipend is for that. But how can I, listen, I cried many years now. I can't, my girlfriend said, Gary, you're not emotional anymore.
By the way, I don't agree with the fact that, I think you said on his show that you can't show your ex-wife that you're, I think it takes a certain amount of courage to just be yourself and cry, regardless. If it makes her feel better, fuck her, that's on her.
Well, I don't think after watching this show, Tom, she's going to feel so good.
But there's a beauty about just being yourself,
right,
and just letting it all hang out.
But this is who I've become, Tom. I don't have the emotion that I used to. People get upset about things, and it's hard for me to empathize with them because I go, you don't know what it's like. I went through 11 years and lost my kids. You're talking about that you crashed your car.
Right. Well, my first impression of you when I met you at your party was really nice guy. I got a really good energy from you. You were floating around to see if everybody's having a good time, right? And you didn't know me, but you still asked, right? So that says something about you. And so now you guys are both good relationships?
Well, because we have this a bond, but we can.
You guys go out, double date this whole thing?
We don't double. We go out with us because listen, even our girlfriends, as much as they're good, they understand from their perspective.
Right.
They can't be in our shoes. Carlos knows the pain that I've been through. I know the pain that nobody can understand until it happens to them. It's a close.
Are your girlfriends friends?
Yeah, we know each other, and everybody's good.
So you see each other socially from time to time.
Well, Carlos and I do more of alone because, again, if we go out with our girlfriends, they don't want to hear us talking about our divorces.
They get tired of it.
Yeah, but is that all you talk about?
Yes.
I mean, Grant, that's all you talk about?
I'm just kidding. But it does come up when Carlos and we go out. We listen. This is we both sometimes, we talk about missing our kids and the anger and the hurt.
So you guys have sort of become sort of sounding boards for each other,
Absolutely.
Right.
I can't. Who can I talk to that would really understand what I'm saying?
Get a little emotion going on.
No, but who can I talk to that would understand?
You didn't get emotional for your kids, but you got emotional for Carlos.
Well, because we talk. Listen, I open up with him. We talk about my kids. He's never met my kids. I never met his two oldest kids.
I think the cues were different, though. We were in his house, so there was a lot of memories in that house. There's
Carlos,
pictures
are you
of his
crying
kids.
a little bit too? I think a little bit.
I always cry, but that's
baby?
easy. Yeah, the big mama's boy. But no, in Gary's home, there was a lot of cues, and that's one of the things that's so hard. Is that you walk past pictures of your children. Gary walks past his children's bedrooms.
Right.
You can't get away from it. You're still submersed in it.
Right.
You put it away as much as you can, but it just pops up a moment's notice.
Right.
Yeah. Father's Day is tough. The two of us on Father's Day.
You get together on Father's Day?
Well, we get together on holidays.
Right.
We talk all day, and it's sort of like we're both, I'm sure, looking at the phone.
Yeah, sure.
For me, Mother's Day is worse than Father's Day, but because I'm thinking that on Mother's Day, my kids are thinking, and she's being, I'm giving her flowers, my wonderful mother. I'm like, this is a piece of shit who destroyed your lives, who destroyed my life.
You think there's any hope that your kids, when they get into their 30s and 40s, are going to figure it out?
I think when their mother dies. I think when their mother dies and they're
So
free.
you're saying right now they're just putting a facade up.
Yeah,
in other words,
I do.
in their subconscious, they understand what's going on,
I
but
do.
they refuse.
My kids are smart.
And they live in fear. There has to be
Yeah.
a subconscious fear because your ex-wife said that to them.
Absolutely.
You ever go back with your dad?
Yeah, I think when she dies, they'll be free to do it without the repercussions of their mother.
Gary's son, also, he didn't bring it up, but he said, it's easier to cut you off than to.
Yeah, my son actually told me, and the last day I saw him he told me, he said, I'm not coming anymore. I said, why? What happened? He said, it's nothing you did. There's nothing you did wrong. It's just that I can't deal with mom anymore.
Oh, my God.
And
So
maybe
on
one
a way,
day.
though, do you feel animosity for your son for not having the balls to?
Of course, there are times when but he was 16 years old.
Right.
That's a big burden.
I know, but they're
to put on
20s
him.
now. You think, why isn't my
Of
son
course I
coming
do.
around?
I say, you know what, when he gets a relationship and his girlfriend's going to say, what happened to your father? Right. What can he say? Well, he forced me to go to Fiddler on the Roof and fought for custody. What could he say? So he's got to. My daughter used to make up a story to her friends who all knew me. She would tell them, well, the reason that I don't like my dad is because he cheated on my mother so much.
Wow.
Because how do you justify it?
How do we end this? What did we learn today?
It's emotionally grueling. That across the board, the system isn't what you're led to believe. You're led to believe that there's justice, justice in the American way. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, it's a corrupt system. It's all about money.
Right.
Kids are used as pawns, and kids are programmed to hate another parent that they really shouldn't hate.
Right.
So that was my big wake-up call.
The idea is that the system needs to change, and if any of your viewers are watching and can do something, whether it's go to a protest, give money, join Americans for Legal Reform, anything they can do, help with your production, anything. Everybody just does a little bit, it will get better. Everybody has to do something. We had a show on CNN. I have my show, Long Island Backstory. Mm-hmm. Carlos, you can Google him. He does a radio show in the best interest of the children. So the fact that we're getting the word out.
House Calls, my YouTube channel.
House Calls, sorry, yeah. So
You're a very good salesman, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
You get everything in.
All I ask of you is for you to prove these words are true. You better learn to show consideration. All I ask of you is to listen to my point of view. You better learn to show consideration. You should have learned to show consideration.